tell us a little about these helicopters.
Sure. Well, these are a RotorWay Jet Exec.
It looks like a jet-powered helicopter, but the truth behind it is far more surprising. This machine isn't what people think, and once you see how it really works, everything changes. It starts simple, a question that sounds almost casual. Can you tell us about these helicopters? But what you're actually looking at isn't simple at all. Sitting there are multiple machines that people keep calling a jet-powered personal helicopter. And instantly, that phrase hooks you, because it sounds futuristic, almost unreal, like something that shouldn't even exist outside military tech. And then you hear the name Jet Exec. That alone fuels curiosity, because now your brain starts connecting dots: jet engine, helicopter, personal aircraft. It feels like someone just merged two worlds that were never supposed to meet. And for a moment, you start believing it, that maybe this really is a jet helicopter anyone can own. But something feels slightly off. Not wrong, just incomplete. Because the way it's introduced, almost too casually, makes it feel like there's more beneath the surface, like you're only seeing one layer of the story. And the more you look at it, the more questions start stacking. Why are there so many of them in one place? Why does it look familiar, yet completely different? And most importantly, is it actually what people are calling it? Because here's the thing. What if everything you've heard about this jet helicopter is only half true? And that's where it gets interesting. Because to understand what this machine really is, you have to go back, not forward. Back to what it used to be. And this is where the illusion starts to crack. Just a little. Because despite the name, despite the hype, despite everything people are saying, this wasn't originally a jet-powered machine at all. In fact, it started as something far more ordinary, a kit helicopter, built piece by piece, designed not in some secret lab, but in a place like Chandler, Arizona. And then comes the line that changes everything: turbine conversion of the standard RotorWay. Wait, conversion? That means this wasn't designed this way from the beginning. It was modified, upgraded, transformed into something else entirely. And suddenly the story shifts. Because now you're not looking at a revolutionary new aircraft. You're looking at an evolution, one that someone chose to create. And it gets even more niche. Only around 100 of these conversion kits were ever made. And out of those, maybe 60 or 70 actually became real, flying helicopters. That's it. Not mass production, not widespread adoption. Just a small group of builders pushing an idea forward. So now the question changes. It's no longer, what is this machine? It becomes, why would someone take a perfectly working helicopter and completely change its heart? Because replacing an engine isn't just an upgrade. It's a decision, a risk. And whatever they replaced it with had to be worth it. Which leads to the real turning point of this story: the engine. Wait, you're watching right now but not subscribed to the channel. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button so we can move on with the video. You did? Okay, cool. Now back to the video. And this is where things start to feel a little unreal. Because the engine inside this helicopter didn't come from another civilian aircraft. It didn't come from some modern aviation company trying to innovate. It came from somewhere completely unexpected. A Solar T62 turbine, an engine originally built for military use. Not to fly helicopters, but to power them on the ground. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. This engine was used as an APU, an auxiliary power unit, in machines like the Boeing CH-47 Chinook. Its job wasn't to fly, it was to assist, to provide power when needed. And yet, somehow, it ended up becoming the heart of a personal helicopter, And the numbers make it even crazier. This thing spins at around 60,000 revolutions per minute. That's not just fast, that's insane. Of course, it gets reduced through a gearbox before it becomes usable. But still, the raw power behind it changes everything about how this machine behaves. And here's the twist nobody expects. Most of these engines weren't even new. They were repurposed, pulled from military surplus, picked up by builders who saw potential where others saw leftover equipment. So now you have to ask yourself, if this engine is so powerful, so reliable, so different, why wasn't it used from the beginning? Because every upgrade comes with a trade-off. And this one didn't just change the engine, it changed the entire helicopter. And this is where things stop being a simple engine swap and turn into a full mechanical overhaul. Because the original helicopter? It relied on belts, multiple belts, running through the system, transferring power from the engine to the rotors. It worked, but let's be honest, belts in something flying above the ground? That alone makes people a little uneasy. Even in the transcript, you can feel that hesitation, that quiet doubt. Now here's where everything changes. With the turbine conversion, those belts don't just get upgraded, they get replaced. Completely. What you now have is a shaft-driven drivetrain, solid mechanical links, gearboxes, couplings, a system that feels more like a real aircraft, more rigid, more intentional. And on paper, it sounds like a clear improvement. No more long belt runs, no more layered pulley systems. Instead, power flows through a chain of gears and shafts, transferring energy directly from the turbine to the rotors. Cleaner, stronger, more precise. But then, something interesting happens. Because as the system becomes more advanced, it also becomes more complex. And complexity in aviation? That's not always a good thing. Every new gearbox, every coupling, every moving part adds another point where something could go wrong. So now you're stuck between two ideas. One feels simple, proven, almost primitive. The other feels modern, engineered, powerful, and suddenly the question shifts again. Does a more complex system actually make it safer, or just more complicated? Because advanced doesn't always mean better, and the only real way to understand that is to see how it actually feels in the air. And this is where everything flips again. Because the moment you hear someone describe what it feels like to fly this thing, the entire tone changes. It's no longer about engineering, or systems, or conversions. It becomes personal. The pilot describes it in a way that instantly clicks, like driving a sports car, not just fast, but responsive. Every input you make, the helicopter reacts almost immediately. There's no delay, no softness, just direct connection between you and the machine. And that feeling? It's addictive. Compared to other helicopters like the Robinson R22 or even the Robinson R44, this one feels sharper, more alive, less forgiving maybe, but more engaging. You're not just flying it, you're balancing it, constantly adjusting, feeling every movement. And for a lot of pilots, that's exactly what they want. It becomes less about comfort and more about control, less about stability and more about connection. And that's why some even compare it to flying something like a Bell 206 Jet Ranger, a machine known for its smooth handling. But here's the part people don't always say out loud. That feeling? It's subjective. Because what feels responsive to one pilot might feel twitchy to another. What feels exciting might feel unstable to someone else. And a lot of it comes down to what you're used to. Still, there's no denying it. Flying this helicopter feels different. Better in some ways, more intense, more raw, and that's exactly why people are drawn to it. But then a new question creeps in. If it feels this good to fly, why isn't everyone using one? Because behind that excitement, there's something else waiting. Something that matters a lot more than how it feels. Reliability. Now we get to the part that really matters. Because performance is exciting, speed is exciting, even innovation is exciting. But none of that means anything if the machine isn't reliable. And this is where the story gets complicated. On one hand, you have the turbine engine, and people describe it in one word: bulletproof. These engines are known for running for thousands of hours, fewer moving parts compared to piston engines, less vibration, less wear. In theory, they should last longer, perform better, and give you more confidence in the air. But then, reality steps in. Because while the engine might be incredibly reliable, the rest of the helicopter? That's a different story. This isn't a factory-built aircraft with decades of refinement. It's an experimental machine, a custom-built system where different parts have been modified, adapted, and sometimes even improvised. And in the early days, that led to problems. Drivetrain issues, mechanical fixes, adjustments that had to be discovered through trial and error. And here's the part most people don't see. There's no single manual that solves everything. Instead, there's a community. Builders, pilots, people sharing information, solving problems together, learning from each other's mistakes. It's almost like an ecosystem, one where knowledge is passed around instead of officially documented. Which sounds great, until you realize what it means. It means you can't figure everything out on your own. It means ownership comes with responsibility. And it means this helicopter isn't just something you buy, it's something you understand. So now the question becomes even deeper. If it's so reliable, why does it depend so much on the people flying it? Because whatever issues remain, they don't always show up where you expect. And that's where things get even more interesting. And just when you think you understand how this machine works, it throws you off again. Because flying this helicopter isn't just different, it's almost backwards in certain ways. The first thing that catches pilots off guard is the rotor rotation. It spins in the opposite direction compared to what many are used to. And that one change, it flips your instincts. Now suddenly when you pull power, your feet have to react differently. The pedal inputs feel reversed. What your muscle memory tells you to do is wrong. And that's where it gets tricky. Because flying isn't just knowledge, it's instinct. It's reactions built over time. And here, those instincts can work against you. Even simple things like approaching for landing feel slightly off. Pilots mention drifting in ways they didn't expect. Subtle movements that require constant correction. It's not dangerous, but it demands attention. And that creates this strange balance. On one side, you have a machine that feels incredibly responsive. On the other, a system that requires you to relearn how to control it. You're not just flying, you're adapting every second. And that raises a question that no one can ignore. What happens when something goes wrong mid-flight? Because in a moment of failure, you don't rely on thinking. You rely on instinct. So can this helicopter actually handle that kind of situation? Or does that complexity make it harder? Because the answer to that question leads to one of the most misunderstood parts of helicopters. Here's the biggest misconception people have about helicopters. They think if the engine fails, it just falls. Straight down, no control, no recovery. But that's not what actually happens. Because helicopters have something called autorotation. And once you understand it, everything changes. When the engine stops, the pilot immediately lowers the collective. That reduces drag on the blades, and suddenly the airflow reverses. Instead of being pushed by the engine, the rotor starts spinning from the air rushing upward. It becomes a windmill, and that changes everything. Now, instead of falling, the helicopter is gliding, controlled, stable, descending at around 1,500 feet per minute, moving forward at speed. The pilot isn't panicking. They're managing energy, adjusting blade pitch, keeping the rotor spinning. And then comes the final moment, the flare. Right before touching the ground, the pilot pulls back, converting forward speed into lift. The rotor speeds up one last time, and that energy is used to slow the descent. If done correctly, the helicopter touches down smoothly. No damage, no crash. And suddenly, the fear disappears. But here's where it gets interesting again. Because turbine helicopters don't behave exactly the same. They don't respond instantly like piston engines. Power comes differently, more gradually, and that changes how pilots practice and recover during autorotation. So now the question shifts again. How does that difference affect real-world safety? Because that's where the true complexity of this machine starts to show. And this is the part no one really talks about. Because owning something like this sounds incredible. A personal helicopter, turbine-powered, high performance. It feels like freedom. But the reality? It's a lot more grounded. For starters, this isn't something you just park anywhere. Owners literally transport these helicopters in trailers, blades off, carefully packed, then reassembled when needed. It's not just flying, it's a process. And storage? Same story. Some people build their own mobile hangars. Others avoid expensive airport rentals by creating DIY solutions. It's creative, but also necessary, because costs add up fast, and every decision matters. Then there's the build itself. No two helicopters are exactly the same. Each one is customized, modified, adjusted based on the builder's choices, which means maintenance isn't always straightforward. You're not just following a manual, you're understanding your own machine. And this is where the community becomes everything. Builders share knowledge, fixes, lessons learned. Because without that network, things get difficult, fast. So now you're looking at a machine that's powerful, unique, and incredibly capable, but also demanding. And that leads to the final question. If it's this complicated, why do people still want it so badly? Because the answer isn't just about performance, it's something deeper. So in the end, this isn't really a jet-powered helicopter. Not in the way people imagine, but maybe that's not the point. Because what draws people to this machine isn't just speed or power, it's the idea of building something, understanding it, and flying it your own way. And maybe it's not about what it is, but what it represents. What do you think?